I'll never forget the first time I saw Eli Santana up on stage, Dallas, Texas, at Gas Monkey, opening up for Black Label Society, absolutely shredding in his band, Huntress, fronted by Jill Janus, rest in peace, who taught me a lot about being a woman in metal that night. It was a visual and auditory feast. This woman, so strong, so fierce, so unashamedly threatening, so beautiful. You didn't feel totally safe when she looked at you with that glare, and I loved it. Then I saw Eli, the epitome of a Greek god up on stage, where I felt like a mere mortal in the crowd looking up and watching. Beautiful, long, flowing hair, good looks, and an intense power pouring out of him through his guitar. I was completely blown away. Then we all grabbed drinks. It was so much fun. We ran around, and I've been following Eli's career for years after that first night, and this guy doesn't do downtime. New frontman of OC hardcore staple Ignite, continuing to shred in Holy Grail, all while nurturing his budding acting career. Eli, how do you find the time?
I don't really sleep a lot. I don't really sleep a lot, but I guess it kind of just always works out, and I kind of take it day by day. I guess if I thought about everything, I'd probably get overwhelmed. But it's like you wake up and you're like, okay, what fire am I going to put out today, and then kind of just focus on that. But yeah. Also, there was 2 years where I kind of had some downtime to work on stuff. I don't know if that happened for you, but I was in a global pandemic because it's all about me.
Absolutely. Well, it was kind of funny. It changed for like content creators. Like you had to change everything, and there was no pussyfooting around. It was now, and everyone is your competition. And anything you don't have figured out, like I still am not on Twitch, and I'm like, I'm going to do it. And I keep seeing memes. It's like, if you can't honor yourself and what you say you're going to do on Friday, like, how is anyone, so I'm seeing all the memes. It's like, step it up, Yeah. So I know what you're talking about. But when it's something you love, you find the time. I think that's the common denominator for that, right?
Yeah. And it's like looking back, I have these goals, and then I pull them off, and you look back, and when it's done, it's just like, oh, that's awesome. How'd you pull that off? And then I remember this just like super sloppy, just ugly version of pulling it off, where every day I'm like, I guess I didn't get that done today, and I'll do it tomorrow. And that's been years of doing, ever since like Holy Grail, and then just trying to do like content creating, stuff like that. And it's like, I'm gonna start this YouTube channel, or like even like Twitch and stuff like that, and then it's just, well, maybe not today, I'll do it tomorrow. So it's just been this really just sloppy version of it, but I always somehow pull it off. And it's one of those things, you don't really see the ugly version of, it just looks like,
you
like
just see the highlight reel, right?
Yeah. It's just like, oh, that guy's like Mark Wahlberg waking up at 4 a.m. and doing all that stuff. And I was like, no way, that's not even close to.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, I'm really good friends with Richie, and he's like, oh, Mr. Hollywood over here. And it's like, yeah, Mr. Hollywood killing it. He calls me Mr. Hollywood. I think it's super cute. I love it.
Yeah, I miss that dude. Yeah, he's actually out in California now. I need to catch up with him. But that was one of those sad things where, because I really lucked out with Huntress and Holy Grail and all this stuff, where there was really never any. It always kind of like just fell into place, mm-hmm. And I kind of think my luck ran out with scheduling and everything, where I was just like, oh, I don't think I'm gonna pull this one off, So yeah, I miss those dudes. They rule.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much love. Like Richie's one of my good friends. So he talks like so highly of you, and he's so happy for you. And we like love fest on each other all the time. We're like, happy. It's all happy. So happy for you. And and glad and everything. So it's really good. So I feel like you guys have been filming like a new season of Game of Thrones with all the places that Ignite is going. What's going on there? Like, are you trying to like one up HBO? Do you think you can do it better? Where all have you guys been playing? Because you're like in very obscure places I would never think to vacation. And it looks really pretty. It looks great over there.
It actually really is. And I try to remember to share all of it because because I'll read stuff and it's all about being present and being in the moment. And I'm like, oh, this is really cool. But I do realize that I was like, oh, I should have took a picture of that, or like, instead of just remembering it. But so I try to share all that stuff, but we've seen a lot, and it wasn't a lot in a little amount of time. So it's the weird thing where I still like kind of yet to process everywhere we've even been. But yeah, it's either seeing amazing landscapes or going to the beach or going to these old castles that are way older than our entire country. And I do love all that stuff because walking by those castles, you kind of like for a split second, you kind of pretend you're in Game of Thrones, and doing all that. But it's cool because with Ignite, they really try to take the time to, no, let's go see some stuff. Let's go, like, let's make time. We'll go early and then we'll check this out. And then they've been touring Europe for 26 years, I think. And so they know that I haven't been to Europe that much. And so it's like, oh, you got to see this, you got to see that. And I love that stuff. I mean, it is tiring, but it is better than being, as you've seen bands in dressing rooms, everybody's on their phone and it's all quiet. And then it's just like, oh, you really want to go backstage? You want to see what it looks like? It looks like people on their phones. So it's cool that we don't do that. And even, I'm trying to get better about not drinking on tour, but it's just like, I'm going to day drink at a castle. Like I'll sober up before the show. Like, it's fine.
There you go. That's like, well, I'm, all power to you because I'm technically doing an interview right now, but I can drink at a castle, like while I'm hanging out with Eli, like that's what we're doing right now. So we're drinking at a castle. I'm having a drink. It was a funny day, so I have a backup drink if I want it, and I never do that. But I was like, I'm going to make a backup drink if I want to do it. So we're at a castle filming Game of Thrones. There's a backup drink if I want it. I'm excited.
Yeah, that's right. Wait, so let's see that mug. What do we got on that mug?
Okay, so I don't know. Like, people order. I went to Miami. I hung out at the Versace mansion a lot. I made out with a bartender who took me to an exclusive part of the house that like no one's allowed to. So it's very inspired by the whole Versace, S thing. I have like Versace jewelry. So I tried to like design my own like Scandalous Versace logo.
Oh, I love it.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Well, I send. But yeah, I'm glad you like it. That's happy feedback. Most metalheads, like I have like the scorpion with the rose and the Scandalous. It's like more of a metal design.
Yeah.
And people like mostly kind of gravitate towards that one. And I'm like, but my Miami trip logo right here that I'm so, don't you, isn't this one great over here? Yeah.
It's like a Medusa Starbucks.
Yeah.
But like your version.
Yeah, exactly. It's super funny. Like I told the designer, like, no, I hate it. I want something different. Then I showed it to people and they're like, oh my God, I love it. And I was like, I love it too. After other people told me they loved it. I was like, great. Hey, there you go. Part of the design process was like, no, I hate it. People were like, it's great. I was like, it's great. Just kidding. Yay.
Yeah, that happened. That happens to me all the time. I get in my head about it. Actually, like I didn't, amazing artist, like dude kills it. But the first Holy Grail album art I didn't like at first, and it was the same thing. And I was just like, it's like this crocodactyl man, I don't get it, and blah blah blah. And it was just like, no, it's awesome. And I was like, oh yeah, it is awesome. I just had to be told it was, and then now I'm all about it.
Yeah, isn't that funny? It was like, what is this Sharknado thing over here you're trying to do on my band's album? People are like, it's great. And you're like, oh, it's great. Oh, okay, good. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's
Yay.
Yeah, so I got this is it's just
oh cool. Yay, I like it. That's awesome.
I usually have a mug that's it's a bigger mug, but I'm taking it easy. I'm trying to go less coffee, but it's Luke's Diner from Gilmore Girls.
Oh, you like Gilmore Girls?
Maybe. I don't.
Oh,
We'll edit that out. Cut that.
Absolutely not. We're keeping it forever. So we're going to talk about the switch from guitars to vocals. But how did you guys hook up in the first place? And what was it like playing the first show? We're going to do a little bit of Ignite and then do some history on you, then go through everything. So we're going to do that. But let's stay with Ignite for a minute. Cool. How did this happen? Was it like a surprise to everyone, or for people who knew you, where you lived? Did it make a lot of sense?
Actually, it was kind of a surprise to everyone I knew. It made perfect sense to me. Well, maybe one close friend was actually kind of called it when they had the position open. They had announced it, and my friend Josh Caldwell, who plays in this band, got hammered. We've been friends for 22 years. But he, right when he saw that, he texted me. He's like, dude, you should totally sing for Ignite. And we laughed and we're like, yeah, that'd be crazy. And then we just went on about our lives. So he kind of called the shot from right when it happened. But I think the first hardcore show I ever saw was Ignite. I was going to a community college, and there was this punker dude who had the Liberty Spikes that we became friends with, and he made me a copy of Death by Stereo's first record and got me into them. And he was like, oh, hey, do you want to go see Death by Stereo? And I'm like, yeah, it's up in Corona at the Showcase. I'm like, yeah, totally. I realized I think he was manipulating me to give him a ride, because he was like, oh yeah, I don't have a car and I don't drive. And I'm like, well, I guess then I'll drive. And so we went, and it was insanity. They were so good and people were going crazy. Then the band that played after them was Ignite. And I was like, what is this? And I was totally in, bought their CD the next day at Best Buy. And I just loved it, and kind of was always just watching what they were doing. And then the next record was even better than the first. And so out of nowhere, with Holy Grail, through a mutual friend, Craig Anderson, the drummer for Ignite, is a big metalhead, and he got into Holy Grail. And so we became friends, and it was the type of thing where he's just like, hey dude, I know how it is, but if there's any list, love. And I'm like, for the guy from Ignite, absolutely. And it was the type of thing where he'd I'd always go see Ignite when they came through. And even I think drunkenly at NAMM, I was drinking with him, and I'm bragging in front of him, I'm like, dude, I'm totally partying with the dude from Ignite, no big deal. And he hits me up probably a year after, they're trying to figure things out and find a new singer. And everyone's like, hey, do you know any metal guys that can sing this stuff? Because it's high melodic, and there's not a lot of people that are available in the punk world. And so he texts me, and I'm kind of I'm well into my cups, as Game of Thrones people would say. I've been doing a little boozing, so I got some liquid courage, and I'm like, well, what's the guy got to do? What? And he's like, oh, just we'll send a demo. And I'm like, I'll do it. And let me try. And he's like, okay. And then I wake up, and in my inbox, there's 2 instrumentals for a couple of songs off of Darkest Days, some of my favorite Ignite songs ever. And I was like, whoa, that was real. And so I was actually working on doing vocals for my solo stuff. So I had the setup. I'm in that mode. And then I stopped doing that. And I just got so into doing these demos. It was so much fun to do the auditions, I should say. And it was just like giddy, like, oh, I get to hear my voice on these Ignite songs. And I never thought anything more of that. And so they ended up going, hey, we kind of like it. Like, here's some new stuff. And throw some vocals on these. And Nick, the guitar player, had demoed up his vocals, and he's got a great voice. Also, well, on his own, it sounded like I just said I got a great voice, but I mean, he's got a great voice. And so I heard these new songs, and they were like dark and didn't sound like anything Ignite had done before. So they were already kind of changing as it was. Like, it would have been different even with the same singer. So I got really into it, and I was like, oh, I got attached. I'm like, no, I really want the job because I really want to work on these songs with them and, like, hear all this new stuff. And then we got in a room. They wanted to make sure I wasn't all like Pro Tools faking it. And so I was like, oh, okay, he can do it in the room. And then we went to Cameron Webb's studio where they'd done their last records. And I was like, okay, let's do the Cameron test. And so I went through some stuff, and he kind of totally picked me apart. Like, I was like, is this part of like the hazing or something? And so
how did he pick you apart, by the way? I'm really curious. Was he like picking apart your voice and being like, well, why do you do it this way? Why do you do it this way?
Yeah. It was just, okay, your pronunciation on this word, it sounds like you're chewing your words and blah, all this, like, all this stuff. And then it was just like, oh, okay, you kind of skipped over this one note here. And then, oh, hey, can you do these harmonies like on the spot? And it was just kind of, I walked out, I was like, that probably wasn't great, but I took it as just a challenge. I'm like, I'm just going to work that much harder. And then we were going to do the record with them. I'm like, God, is it going to be like that for like every song? And I was like, well, whatever, let's get into this. And then he ended up being amazing. It was awesome. I think he probably respected that I also did my homework too, because we all came in really, really prepared. And other than just like really constructive, actual like criticism, not just kind of bagging on me or anything like that, it was actually really positive the whole time. And it was the type of thing of, if he goes, oh, you need to do it, you can do it better, you need to do it again, I was like, oh, I believe you, I don't even need to hear it. Or if I'm like, I could do it way better than that, he's like, yeah, but that's the take, we're moving on. And I was like, okay, I trust you. And obviously he knew what he was talking about, because the record came out great, like he ruled. So that was kind of that whole, and it was funny because there was never really like, all right, dude, you're in, like, it was, we were working on demos, and it was like months and months. And it was just kind of, like in a relationship, I wanted to like, hey, so what are we? Like, what are we, what are we doing here? Like, are we just having fun or?
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. I've been doing interviews for like, God, maybe, I don't know, maybe like 10, 15 years. That's like one of the funniest things I've ever heard, like define a relationship in a band. That's one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my entire life. That is so funny. Okay. So that was kind of how you guys got together. When did y'all define the relationship, and when did you play your first show, and how did that happen?
Well, I realized we were like booking studio time and doing like photo stuff, and I'm like, I think it's getting serious. So yeah, it was. I think it was just kind of didn't need to be said, because once we were just like, oh, okay, we got a new guy and blah blah blah, and I think it was just like, I think I got the job. There wasn't an actual like, hey, you're in. And so yeah, it was just kind of like a really like kind of non-climactic realization that I'm like, I think I'm in this band. But it was cool because we like in the pandemic, everybody they all say, I mean, I did it for a bunch of other stuff, but everyone's like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And then when it's over, I'm going to have a whole album and, you know, or I'm going to do this giant project. And I think, you know, a lot of people just like, well, I know how to bake bread now, I think was kind of what a lot of people came out of it. But I don't remember the lockdown really being this boring, like burning through a bunch of Netflix stuff, because we were that whole time writing and working really hard on this record. So I kind of, actually coming right home from the last Insight show in Mexico when everything like shut down, I kind of just was always working on. So I never really had the bored period through the lockdown. So we ended up knocking out this record and writing and doing all this stuff. And what was really cool is no one knew. Like they had a couple of friends that were just like, oh, I think they got a new guy. But no one other than people close to me knew that Ignite was even doing anything. And here we are like tracking a full record. And so when they started teasing stuff out, it was this really, really fun, like kind of peeking out from the closet and seeing people talk about who it could be. And it was just like, everyone is so far off. Like they're not even in the right genre, I guess. And so,
and there's no way anyone could ever know. Ever.
No, because it was a thing where people didn't think of me as a singer. You know, they thought of me as a guitar player. And so it was this fun thing. And then the whole reveal was the first single. We put out a video with it, and then it was just like, okay, here's what the dude looks like. And that was exciting because I knew when it was going to happen. And I'm just kind of watching my phone, and I was just like, all right, there's no going back now. Once I get revealed. And so that was a lot of fun. But then also it was like, okay, now there's a whole batch of work that goes with this, because now I'm learning all the whole set and memorizing it and working on it. And just like, I had a realization that vocal cords aren't guitar strings and you can't just change them. So like I blew my voice out a bunch just because I got in my crazy work ethic mode. And I was like, oh yeah, there's limitations to the human body basically. And so I had to be really good on myself, to take breaks and like, oh no, that's enough for today. So that was that like quick learning curve. So the first show we played was Punk in the Park in Orange County, and it was with like,
no pressure, right?
No pressure. Thousands of people.
Yeah, none at all.
No.
Like probably I'm not really in the punk scene at all. I have dabbled, like I have gone to like Doom shows, and those people are not friendly. They're like, they do not like me at all. So I just don't know. Like, and I think punk people, a lot of them can be very purist. I think like Doom people, they do not like my personality. Like bubbly, no. If you're not ready to invest, like happy, bubbly, like out the door. Punk, I could see them being very purist. So that's very nerve-wracking, right?
Yeah, and I'm thinking all about that. And I'm thinking like, am I gonna have to fight people today? Like, what is gonna like what? I don't know.
Okay, so our heads are in the same place, because that's like it's a scene, and it's like it's very real history.
Yeah. And it ended up being so welcoming and so much fun. And it was like there was pretty much pits and people singing along from the first song. And I was like, oh wait, I think I could pull this off, because it was a lot of people that were receptive. And it was crazy, because where it was, there was no cell reception for like anyone. So it was this weird, isolated, giant experience, that it was, I mean, there's video of it and stuff like that, but it was still like, people weren't live streaming or doing anything, or I couldn't even tell anybody how it went until the next day. But it ended up going really, really well. But at the same time, I'm just like, being kind of a perfectionist. I was like, okay, I got a list of things I need to work on, and just excited to be better. And then there was a handful of shows after that. And then I was like, okay, I need to also figure out how I can do this for like long periods of time and full tours and all that stuff like that, as opposed to just going full out every show and figuring out how to like have more control and everything. Cause I just, I want to scream my head off. I get excited and, so that was that work after that. But it was, and actually like with a lot of older punk bands that they played with and hardcore bands, like especially with like the people in the bands, they've been nothing but like just welcoming and like excited and, really just really nice and cool. And a lot of the people like, I guess in the scene, I mean, there's always going to be shitty people like on the internet who are going to talk shit. Like you could be absolutely perfect, like Freddie Mercury resurrected with like auto-tune in your throat. And it'd be like, nah, that's not the guy I'm used to. No, and so you have to be able to just like write those people off, and because there's nothing there's nothing you can do for those people. And so, but it also like kind of makes me like want to work hard to at least be at the point where it just like, okay, like talk shit. Like that was kind of perfect, man. Like you're just being a dick. So, but yeah, overall it's been awesome.
So we're going to keep on keeping on, talk about your music career, but I want to get to know a little bit about you early on. I know you act, I know you like cats, I know you like guitars, live in LA, but I really don't know much about you at all. So are you from LA originally? Who are you? Where are you from? Let's get some background on it.
I'm actually from San Diego. I'm actually back in San Diego right now.
Okay.
And actually like North County, Oceanside, Vista. I am a Vista Panther, CIF champion, football player.
What's CIF?
I don't really know what it stands for, but it was like, it's like the big, like, it's like the championship in the San Diego County. And my senior year, we won everything. And it's funny because I'll bring up like high school football and like, the dudes in Ignite were just like, oh God, here we go. And it'll be like, just someone like, we'll be in like Poland and I'm like, yeah, because I played high school football, I'm a CIF champion. And it's like, wow, they don't care about that at all.
Well, you're talking to the wrong people. I'm a woman from Texas. So consider your audience. Hello.
Right?
I'm talking to the wrong people all along. I don't like college, but I like the NFL. So NFL is about to start off. Hey, you've just been talking to the wrong people. Hit me up with that. Go on. Yeah, okay. Texas, CIF champs.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, because in Texas, like high school football is like, it might as well be pro. Like it some of those stadiums are crazy out there.
Yeah. They look super. Yeah. They'll millions of dollars. So like a small town, no economy, no jobs, $5 million football stadium for the high school players.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
See, exactly. Wrong audience.
Yep. I was like super made fun of my whole, like my mom moved me from Dallas to Amarillo where our family was. Summer before my freshman year in high school. I had no friends for like 2 years, but then it's kind of this is kind of a great story. Like if you just try but it's kind of a funny story. Like I was either a whore or a lesbian. I like literally had that, in the movies where the entire grade, you're walking across the gym floor and people are like pointing and laughing at you. Like people did that to me. It was super funny. And then I changed schools. Oh, that was nothing. But I changed schools and was like, I'll try out for cheerleader. Screw it. Like, why not? And I'm a horrible dancer. I'm not good at it at all. But through trying out, I met my best friend who was like, came up to me and like, I'm not a dancer, but she came up to me and she was like, hey, you're doing really good. I just wanted you to know you're doing really good. And I was like, thanks. Thanks so much. And I ended up going to lunch with them. And those were like my best friends ever since then. So even though I put myself out there and I failed miserably, I froze, but I got my best friends out of it. And I don't know. I was like, there's something about like putting yourself out there, even though like I didn't make it, even though I froze, even though I made an ass out of myself. I met my best friends who are still my best friends today.
Yeah.
We've been friends for like 16, 17 years, something like that. So there's something I was trying to tie that in because they were super into them being cheerleaders.
Yeah.
They still talk about it to this day. And like they still break out. Like if we're somewhere and they're like drinking or whatever, they'll look at each other and they'll like start like doing a little something like that, like from their high school days.
Wait, so what was the name of the school and like the mascot?
Oh, so Tascosa Rebels. So it was Go Big Rebs. And then my cousins went to the rival school. So they were the Amarillo High Sandies. So we would do Hell Week every year for Halloween. And the schools would do rival t-shirts. Like the kids would all do like fucked up t-shirts, like making the sand give the rebels head or something, like very, very bad things. Like everyone would egg each other's cars. We would make fucked up flyers and like go just throw thousands of flyers throughout. I drove by my cousin's house and I had like 3 eggs in my hand to like egg her car. And there was a cop already in her driveway that was there because she had been out egging herself. So I like had my hand out and I was like, I got frozen and I was like, oh, don't throw it. There's a cop car there. But the whole like Rebels versus Sandy's thing, like blow, Sam, blow. We all know you suck.
I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, I wish I still had those like Hell Week t-shirts. Those were great.
Yeah, I saved some shirts and stuff like that, and like I still have my Letterman's jacket, but I still like my best friend, like one of my closest dudes I met from high school and stuff like that. So we'll be hanging out, and he's like the like producer on like Avatar, or production designer on like Avatar, like the next couple movies, and he's worked on like Lord of the Rings. He's just this like big time movie dude. But it's just funny because we'll be out like driving and he'll just be like, oh, can I make a U-turn here? And I'm like, you're a Vista Panther. You can do anything you put your mind to. And people are like, oh my God, can you not like talk about like high school sports like 20 years later? Yeah. So
yeah. Yep. I love those inside jokes from high school. There's like my best friend. One day we were just like laying around laughing. Last one, this is great. It was her birthday yesterday. And then we'll get back to it. But we used to skip. Well, this is kind of funny. Whatever. We used to skip school, go get Chick-fil-A, go to the mall, go to Dillard's and try on fake engagement rings, and then go to her parents' house, take a nap in her parents' house, and then wake up and like, that was our fun year. But one of our favorite inside jokes, one day I was like, BJ, if you were any Spice Girl, which one would you be and why? And then she was like, I think I'd be Pepper. And like that was a good inside joke. So I don't know.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it, man.
Well, I'm so glad we got to talk about high school. That's very fun.
Yeah. So I started playing guitar when I was like 12 because I wanted to be Bret Michaels, and there was a guitar class at my like junior high, and I was like, well, I got to be able to strum an acoustic guitar for the big ballad, so that'll be a good skill to have. And then I ended up getting a guitar like right before that, and I just got obsessed with it. and didn't want to be Bret Michaels. I wanted to be Kirk Hammett after that. And then kept trying to start bands. Like I wanted to start a band so bad that I ended up with a friend buying drums and trying to teach myself how to play drums in like a week, because I was like, let's book a show, let's just do it. And it was probably terrible. Like there's no way it was good with a couple of friends. And then I had a high school band called Against the Grain, which we ended up changing our name to Global Scar later. But the reason I got in that band was the singer was trying to tell these dudes that my uncle was Carlos Santana, as opposed to just saying like, hey, this guy plays guitar, I think he's good. He had to have that selling point of like, no, dude, it's like he could hook us up with like whatever. And he ended up kind of not really showing up much. And just as people in high school, well, even after that, he was kind of just flaky and just kind of something to do. And he was trying to get us to sound like Weezer was his like favorite band. And so we're kind of playing some stuff. And then from him not showing up, we ended up getting talking about what we really like. And it was like, wait, you like Slayer and Sepultura? I'm like, I do too. I don't want to write about taking a girl to the movies. I want to write about like death and destruction. And we're like, yeah. And so we kicked that dude out and then started trying to write just really heavy stuff. And then we kept trying out singers, and this dude was just really weird. But like, I was like, well, we need someone to sing and he can kind of scream. And he told us this, like, he was probably making it up, trying to be cool, but he said that he like jizzed in this dude's sandwich because he was mad at him, and he thought like he was expecting like, oh, dude, you're rad, and we're just like, fuck. And then our first show was like a battle of the bands, and we're like, I really don't want to pick up. I kind of don't want to ever see that dude again. And they were just like, you wrote all the songs, like just play and sing. And so we ended up, the way we kicked him out, we just didn't go pick him up. And then we ended up being like a 3-piece. And then I just kind of was sick of dealing with singers. And so I'm like, I just teach myself how to sing. So
How old were you at this point, by the way? Because it sounds like you're 16, 17.
Yeah, 16, 15, 16.
So you have all this band experience. Like you already know to be frustrated at like 16, 17.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you sound like you sound like you're 45 already, and you're like, I've just been a rough road for me, and you're like 16, 17.
Yeah, we're still getting dropped off by our parents to go play shows and stuff like that.
I mean, when I say this music industry will make you jaded.
Oh, I came in jaded.
Jaded at like 16, 17. You're like, so frustrated at 16, 17 years old. That's pretty funny. Yeah,
I was already like, with singers writing stuff, I was just like, dude, you're not Jim Morrison waiting for the spirit to come to you. You're just lazy. You just didn't work on it. Like it's obvious. So I used to like try to get home before my parents, and then I would try to sing like Life of Agony songs and like Sepultura songs, and just out of just like forcing it to, like, no technique whatsoever, just kind of forcing it to happen. And it's funny you said Hell Week, because we ended up we mixed up the dates of our like first demo, like 6-song kind of EP thing, and we're trying to do it right before like senior year. I'm like, yeah, I want to show up with like something to give to people. And we messed up the dates. So I ended up having to go record after like the beginning of like 2-a-days Hell Week. And so the first day I was throwing up all day because we had to run 30 40s and it had to be under this time. And I just was out of shape from like working on, I didn't train at all. I just worked on music all summer. And so I was like throwing up because I was so exhausted. And then it was just like, I also don't really know how to sing. And then it's just like, let's get you in a vocal booth. And it's not great. It had promise, but it's really just embarrassing songs. But I have friends that have those tapes. And that's how long ago it was, because it was on tapes. But then we just kind of kept working at it, and it ended up being like, I think we were a pretty good band for that young, I guess. But had a long way to go as a musician, and definitely as a singer. And then it's funny, and then I started another band where I was the lead singer. That we never put anything out. So it's just this thing where, like, until Holy Grail, I kind of was always like singer, guitar player guy. You know, I mean, I always was a show off shredder dude, but it wasn't until like Holy Grail that I only just played guitar and like kind of did backups. And I was working on my like solo record, which at the time was called Eli Santana and the Bestiality Boys.
How could you have known?
Yeah. Yeah, it was like, yeah, maybe I should change the name, because I was booking a show with this, I think it was the owner of this club in LA. And we were just talking about the logistics. You get here at this time, blah, blah, blah. And the guy goes, hey, so one more thing. And I'm like, okay. And he's just like, I just want to talk to you about this bestiality thing. And I'm like, okay, it's a dumb joke that just kind of, no. I'm just like, man, I got a couple of videos. And I'm like, I gotta go. I don't want to hear this at all. And he's like, yeah, there's a thing with like a horse and this. And I'm like, whoa, no, I don't want.
No.
And he's like, yeah. And then there was like this Swedish chick with like a dog. And I'm just like, but like my wife found it, but I got rid of one, but I had to keep the Swedish one, right? And I was like, I gotta change this name. I don't like, it's a whole.
What are you like? So timeline. I'm just laughing at how young you are. So what are you, like 19 around this time?
Well, so that was like, I think I was like 26, but like I'd already had like a couple of failed, but like,
okay.
From like, so it was, I'll tell you the name. So it was Against the Grain, which became Global Scar. And then we kind of broke up. And I was also helping out with this band called 30 Dose, which was like a ska kind of punk band. So that was like, but that was only because they lived down the street from me and I played Little League with them. And it was just kind of something to do. And then I played in a band called Shocks of Mighty, which was a reggae band, which was a lot of fun, and did that for a couple years. And then I started a band called Shrike with my friend, that guy Josh, who like kind of called the shot with me singing for Ignite. We worked at the Olive Garden together. We were bussers, and then we realized we both liked music, and so and then the drummer, this guy Greg Mason, who plays in a band called Lost Relics out in Denver, and they're rad. And then my other friend Seth, who's guitar player out in San Diego, and we were called Shrike. And it was this thing where me and the dude Seth were like these shredder guys, but this is like new metal era. So we have like, you know, and we're all into like Maiden and Yngwie and all this stuff. And then we're like, well, Fear Factory doesn't really do guitar solos, therefore we aren't really going to either. So it was like one of the best things to offer we had in the band. We're like, nah, we're just going to skip that. So it was kind of like, oh yeah, I put an ad out for like a band in the vein of like Spine Shank, just because I'm like, this is the new thing, kind of whatever. So it ended up being kind of like, I guess, a new metal Fear Factory type band. The old band Global Scar, we used to be called Baby Biohazard. because we thought we wanted to be like Sepultura, Biohazard, like Pantera, and we would talk about like, you know, growing up on the streets of like the suburbs of San Diego. It doesn't really like transfer like, you know, Brazil or like Brooklyn kind of thing.
Well, I want to ask you really quickly, not to like totally cut you off, but like it's important. I remember like what I cared about and like why music touched me back then. I don't know why we're talking about teenagers. This is so funny. I've never like gotten caught in the teens before, or I guess we're in our 20s. But I remember like what I cared about and why back then. Those are very, you know, like Slayer, Sepultura, that's very heavy at a young age. Like, why did that music touch you? And why did you care about it? And like, what about that song and like those lyrics and stuff? Like, what did you feel about that? You know, kind of at a really young age.
Well, that's actually like really
like, how do you know to be that angry that young? You know,
it's weird because it's like I always liked rock music because it was always like kind of like fighting against and it had all this like energy and just like it just got it like ever since I was little, like any kind of like guitar driven music got me just fired up. Like like even I was just thinking the other day, like, you know, in middle school, I threw this like big long touchdown pass and my whole exciting thing, instead of doing anything, I started singing Kickstart My Heart, like just full voice. Like that was my celebration, like just to sing Motley Crue. Yeah, I'm like 11 or something. And so it was always something I identified with. And two, like I went to like a Christian school where like everyone was white. And so I got a lot of shit for being brown and being like Mexican and got made fun of a lot. And so it was this thing like when I got to like middle school and I started getting into heavier stuff, like, you know, from Metallica, you know, you get into Sepultura, you kind of just, you get heavier and heavier. And actually I met like one of my best friends, like this dude I got in a fight with at PE. And then he shows up actually wearing like a Beneath the Remains shirt. And I'm like, wait, what? You know, and then it was this thing where I really felt that heavy music was, I could identify with that. And it didn't matter what skin color I was. It was like, oh, you see a, you know, it's like when two dogs see each other and they, you know, you see somebody with a metal shirt, you're like, oh, hey, oh, we have to be friends now. Like there was just no other way around it. And so it's actually, it's good you brought that up because in high school, like starting to get into heavier stuff like that, I never really knew what punk was until later. And obviously started really liking it and picking a few bands here. But growing up in San Diego when Blink-182 was kind of on the rise, these like pop punk people were just calling it punk. And so it was like all like the popular people now play instruments. And they also are like starting bands and they're saying that they're like punk rockers. And I was just like, okay, so if you're punk, then I guess I don't like you. So therefore, and so
this was like also the time of Avril Lavigne, right?
A little bit. Yeah. A little bit before that. So it was like, but it was just this like really glossy, like happy. I also don't like a lot of stuff that's in major keys and really happy. And so it was like, everything's like happy. And like I said, like all the songs are like about taking your girlfriend to the movies. And I'm like, what? You know? And then at this time, I'm kind of getting into Cannibal Corpse and just like Morbid Angel and like all that like early 90s death metal. And it was just, to me, it was like, that was my rebelling against what was really, really popular, which is funny because it's like looking back, like that wasn't punk at all. It was just pop music with like guitars. And so that was me kind of fighting against that. Like that was my way to like define myself and rebel. It was just like these metalheads like kind of all coming together. And then it's funny, like in that, like through like the whole like Brooklyn scene in like the 90s, like Typo Negative and like Life of Agony and Biohazard and Sick of It All. We like accidentally started kind of getting into hardcore without knowing it. And then through Biohazard, we were like, oh, dude, let's cover this one song. And it's a Bad Religion song. And so we kind of didn't know we were like also accidentally falling into real actual punk, you know, and then kind of getting into the Misfits and stuff and not really thinking like, oh, we're finding the good stuff, you know, and kind of skipping. Obviously, I respect Green Day and those bands now because, you know, there was something to it. They were writing great songs and making money. But at the time, I'm like, no, fuck.
Well, they're like a gateway band to tell people that something exists.
Yeah.
Like exactly. That there's like, you know, something exists out here.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was that kind of thing with my whole like identifying with like heavy music. But we actually, that band, like we ended up God, I was 17 getting like a show, and we opened up for Immolation and Mortician. And I was just like, we pulled that off. But at the same time, it was like, I always kind of wanted more than, because I did like melody and I did like singing songs and stuff you could sing about. And so it was kind of, it was weird. Like after that show, we started kind of trying to like sing more, maybe rap a little bit. I don't want to talk about that, but we thought we were like, we thought we were Biohazard. And which actually,
not of all the things you could be in the world.
Yeah, no, we actually like, we got our first review and they was just like, can't wait to hear them do something more original. And we played this show and this dude was like, he was into it, but he kept yelling baby Biohazard. Fuck this guy. And this is like, I looked down at our set list and the next song is a Biohazard cover. And I'm like, fuck. All right. Okay, whatever. You got me. And we actually, there's another band, Propane, that we were really into, who like I haven't heard about in a lot of years. And Ignite, we played with them at Alcatraz Fest. So it was this like crazy full circle, like rad thing. Yeah, it was Propane, us, and then Sick of It All. And so it was like all the bands that I was like into in like high school, like kind of like hardcore bands. We actually like are playing with them. And it's funny because Ignite's all friends with like Sick of It All, and I'm still like a little starstruck. But yeah, and then it was after that I grabbed a beer and went and watched Arch Enemy, and I'm like, this is kind of working out, huh?
No, I was just thinking about kind of like my own journey and like how I felt, because I have like a lot of feelings that way. Like I started off with rock radio, and then I got heavier and heavier and heavier.
Yeah.
And then just kind of like looking at your life and going, holy shit, this could be my life. And this could be my life. And at different points in your life, like I really resonate with what you were talking about in so many ways. Just like every few years, just kind of like looking around and going, holy shit, this is cool. In different ways. Like I don't know, I've always really resonated with people in music. And I was like still in high school randomly, like going to go hang out with Candlebox, and I partied with them all night long. And my mom went and picked me up and like made me go to school the next day. And then I went to homeroom and I was like looking around at everyone and I was like, holy shit, I partied with Candlebox till like 4 a.m. last night.
Yeah. All of you don't even know.
You know, it was just, I was looking around like, you guys don't even know. And, you know, I like partied with like Wicked Wisdom. Like there were like a lot of bands I like partied with like when I was in high school, and nothing in my life, like I was always super different, made fun of like by my family. And, you know, I always had like best friends here and there, but I was always like horribly made fun of my entire life until I went to the very first show. And everything that made me different and weird was everything that made me celebrated in music. So it was just this, until I was so weird and I was so strange, until like I found music and I found shows and I found feelings and stuff like that. And everything that made me weird and different was everything that made me successful as fuck and like very loved in the music industry. So it's just a lot of like feelings listening to you talk, you know, about the times, going like, oh my God, I love this so much, looking around and like, whoa.
Yeah, that's very so
cool.
What made you get into rock and heavy music, and what drew you to that?
Well, to be Well, I always loved it. I was like middle school, high schoolish. Like love Dashboard. I don't know. I had issues with like my dad dying when I was young. That was always sad for me. I was always like super made fun of, but yeah, I think it was like being made fun of. I was always different. Like I was always different, but kind of the same way I am now. Like I would pair, like super lacy, cute skirts with like Metallica tees and stuff like that. I always loved it. I was always different, but I definitely like had pain, and like I don't mind saying like my mom used to like beat me up and stuff like that when I was in high school. And I would like to say like we have a wonderful relationship now, but for a bunch of years, like super emotionally, physically abusive. And it was really bad and hard. And had I not had that music to rely on fully and completely, like I'm totally fine now. And my mom and I are so close. She's my mom and I love her. But had I not had that music, I would be fucked.
Yeah.
Like, had I not, I was going through something like so intense and so hard. Had I not had something so aggressive and so intense to like match what I was going through, I really think I would be way screwed up. And for whatever reason, when I started going to shows, like those people were my people. And like Drowning Pool and like Seven Dust, those were like some of my best friends at the time. And they were touring tons. And I'm from Dallas, they're from Dallas, hang out in Deep Ellum. That's when I started hanging out in Deep Ellum and Dallas. And there were bands like I would hang out with. They'd stay at my place, I'd stay with them, whatever, like 2-3 times a month. And like I would go to their show or something like that. Like my mom would hit me and I would just like go in the pit and like wail. And like afterwards, I was like 17, 18, 19, something like that. Like I might cry and they would like literally fucking hold me. And I've been drinking with them and partying with them for like, ever.
Yeah.
And it was just this really intense, crazy time. And especially like Stained, that was wild. Like that's why, he does some crazy shit nowadays. Like he keeps doing very wild things. I don't know how to not defend him, but I still feel kind of here because of Aaron Lewis and his music. And like nothing felt as good as like his lyrics and his songs to me at that time. And I met him and started hanging out with him. And like Stained was like one of the first bands I was ever like really good friends with. And he loved me and he adored me. And like there were times when he would like come off stage, or was like a side, come off stage for a second. And I would be like bawling my eyes off and he would come over and like hold me. And we have like photos of him like holding me like while I'm crying. And it's just like there's no way to describe what that was. And now I'm not sad at all. And now I'm totally fine. But Drowning Pool, Stained, like Seven Dust, like all these incredible bands, like OTEP. And I thought it was kind of cool to talk about it because a lot of people don't think there's hope in that situation at all, or think that like you have to be totally fucked up for the rest of your life. It's a choice. I had that music and like I've had my own business for a bunch of years. I'm super successful, like in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And you don't have to like let shit like that ruin your life. Like I have a wonderful relationship with my mom. We got through it and I'm totally fine. And I really think it's like all because of heavy music.
I 100% agree. And just the fact of, a song you'll be listening to and you actually like listen to the lyrics or read the lyrics and you're like, whoa, this person is going through the same thing. And not even, it's not like they're like within the song are, oh, and here's what you do to get better. It's just like, just the fact that, oh, you're also going through this. You don't feel alone in the world. And so, and the fact that with a lot of like heavier music, there is that rage that gets expressed in a very positive way. Like in high school, I really liked Life of Agony, but then when I actually sat down to read the lyrics on River Runs Red, And basically like the whole album's about him being suicidal. And there's these like weird skits on there of like the dude going through all this stuff. And it's basically a high school kid. And I'm in high school hearing this, and it was just, okay, so there's other people out there. And then in that scene, we're all kind of, misfit toys kind of on that island together once you go to a show, and seeing people just scream along and sing along. And that I really loved. I always identified with that. And that always made me really, really excited when everything else, like a lot of places in your life, you don't really feel understood. I mean, even just kind of like you were saying, we're like getting made fun of at school and stuff like that. And then you go to a show, you're like, oh, I'm at home here.
Yeah, like, oh, I'm such a loser, but so-and-so just sang the entire set to me, like the entire time. I guess I'm not so much a loser. Like, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool kind of talking about all those beginnings. We talked about Huntress earlier, and I think and I think I've talked to you a lot about what that band meant to me. I wanted to kind of touch base about Huntress, about Holy Grail, and then kind of get more into Insight. So I have such a soft spot for that band. Can you kind of walk us through the forming of Huntress, if you were an original member? What was that time like for you? And just how do you look back on that entire experience?
Yeah, Huntress, it's crazy because Jill kind of always had the idea for Huntress. Mm-hmm. And I think had kind of tried here and there because she was in Chelsea Girls, and where she had a different name, and she was always doing things like using her amazing voice. And Holy Grail was playing with a band called Trigger Renegade, which became Professor. But anyway, it was Ian and Blake who would later be in Huntress, and we were playing with them in LA at a place called Ledoux that Jill actually put on the whole night, because it was like we'd play like a couple bands, but it was like a dance club, like, and I think she would DJ too. And I actually have a picture of the first time that me, Tyler from Holy Grail, later Huntress, and his brother Blake, where we all met Jill for the first time. And she just came on super, like, just not afraid, like, hey, what's up? I'm just like, and then it's Jill like just lays across us, and our friend Jeannie, who's a photographer, took a picture of it, and we had just met her. So it's a trip that we have, like, which they would form Huntress, and Blake and Jill would be together for years. And it's funny because even in that picture, you could tell there's something between Blake and Jill. And of course, Tyler and I, like, like we look like we're about to make out in the picture, but just, yeah. So that's for another conversation. So she ends up basically taking that band Professor and go, oh, you're my band now. I'm singing for you. And that started Huntress. And so we were always kind of like, then they ended up getting signed and like touring and stuff like that. And we were always kind of just part of that scene. It's weird when people like used to ask us, what was it like in the scene in LA? I'm like, scene? There was no scene. And I thought about it. I'm like, well, I guess there was, because there was like a handful of bands, and we would play shows, but we would also play like warehouse shows that weren't supposed to be there, like really late at night, and they'd be packed and all this stuff. And I was like, I guess there was kind of a cool little scene there for a minute. And it was all stuff that was kind of, I guess, like traditional metal, like kind of, I guess, retro metal. I don't know all the names for it.
What do you mean about retro metal? Like, what did it sound like?
So yeah, instead of kind of at the time, instead of being like deathcore or whatever, newer stuff at the time, like this was like, I don't know, 2008, and all those bands that were big at the time, we want to do stuff like new wave of British heavy metal, which is, like Diamond Head and Angel Witch and like Witchfinder General and kind of like more Maiden stuff, and just basically like straight up down the middle, like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest stuff. And just because that's what we wanted to do, we thought it'd be fun. And I joined Holy Grail thinking, it'll piss off scenesters. It's gonna be awesome. I can't wait. Not thinking that it would actually like be anything. I just thought it would be fun to do. And then wanting to also kind of with the shreddy stuff, I wanted to have like cacophony, like shrapnel, shreddy dude stuff where there'd be these sections where it would just be insane and it'd all be harmonized. And two, I also just was like, I kind of want even gnarlier riffs than they had back then. So I was trying to bring in like the death metal influences also, but then having like melodic stuff over it, which it's funny because we got a bunch of shit for like doing modern metal stuff. And I actually like ran into Jesse from Killswitch at a bar in Savannah, and they were like, "Oh, it sounds riffs sound too much like Killswitch and blah blah blah." And I'm like, I mean, yeah, but we're also influenced by the same old death metal, which at this point is 20 years old. And it's funny that like, oh, it's too modern. And I'm like, that's not how that works, but okay. Oops.
Yeah.
Okay. But so that was like that whole cool little scene. And after our second Holy Grail second record, Ride the Void, actually did pretty well for at the time when people stopped buying music. And our label was just like, dude, you got to knock out a record like immediately. And I'm like, tight. So I went and like tried to write like a million songs, and like basically we kind of went on a unintended hiatus. So like our singer was dealing with stuff.
Yeah. I went on Wikipedia last night and was reading up.
Yeah.
About things I didn't know about.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to say it, but yeah, the same things she was dealing with, I have in my family. So it's like, oh, got it. That's so hard.
Yeah, absolutely. So while we were kind of waiting for our Holy Grail singer, and it's like, I'm not like, it just is what it is. I'm not like, because everything kind of worked out. But in that time, Huntress needed a guitar player and a drummer. And so Blake's obviously going to ask his brother and then me, and they're just like, hey, are you available for like a Europe tour with a bunch of like festivals and stuff? And I was like, absolutely. And it was so weird. Like a month before that, I was at the gym and I was like, wait, I haven't heard the last Huntress record, Starbound Beast. And I'm like, I love them. They're my homies and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I just need to blast through that record. And I was like, this is really good. And I had this vision of it would be a lot of fun to play these songs live. Wouldn't that be nice? And then a month later, Blake calls me and just, hey, can you learn these songs to play them live? Whoa. And I don't know about all like the manifesting thing. It was just a thing I thought that kind of happened. And then time keeps going by. Hey, do you want to do another tour? Hey, do you want to help us write the next record? Yeah. And then at that point, it was just like, you're in the band, it's to me and Tyler. And so it ended up being, from then on, we were a big part of that lineup. And then finally ended up doing the last Holy Grail record and kind of touring with both. And it ended up, like I said, it somehow never overlapped. And Tyler and I were able to do both. And then, until, we lost Jill in 2018, I believe. Yeah. Which it was crazy. Like Ignite on the, I guess, anniversary of her passing, we played at Alcatraz the Alcatraz Fest. And it was just kind of one of those things where, because I'm using her in-ear unit, I'm using her mic, and it's this thing that like I have like kind of living on. And so, yeah, I got like a bottle of scotch, and I was just like, I got to cheers to her in front of all these people. And it was just this like really like emotional moment. And I got to talk about her and kind of just really just spread the message. And like you said, with kind of the things that she was dealing with, to just try to make people aware that, you know, you're not alone in that. And so, yeah, it ended up being really special.
Yeah. So what would you like people to know about her that they didn't know about her?
Well, she was really, really sweet and loved animals. And like when I went over and like to go start learning the Huntress song, she was taking care of a bird she found, like a little like baby bird, and kind of nursing them back to health. And you know, she would actually, my friend, her cat still is like from a litter of kittens that she found, that she ended up kind of fostering. So his name's Merlin, but at the time she had named him Apocalypse Meow. What was that, the other one? Or no,
that's really funny. I love that. Yeah.
No, it was Girana Meow. That's right.
That's
yeah,
great. That's so funny.
Yeah, and she was just like really, really loved animals and took that serious on a spiritual level. And so that was always something I admired about her. And I'd always stay at their place, and she'd always like cook, and just very, very, you know, maternal in that. And we also just like, it was crazy. Like we found, like when we were kind of getting ready for the memorial, we found all these just like poems she wrote, but it was also like she would get a leaf, and like it was like really, really like draw pictures, and it was just like really beautiful, like artistic. It wasn't just the words on the page; it was like the whole thing, and it was written really beautifully. And it's just, she just also had this just like really just beautiful side to her. And also when I was getting my solo stuff, Alien Satan stuff, I guess I want it to be a band, not just a solo thing, but which it is. I have dudes, and so when we were working on that stuff and writing and recording stuff, like she found out I was kind of doing my own thing where I was going to be singing, and she was immediately supportive. So it was like, no, you got to put your vocals out. You got to do that. Like you can also do this. And it was, so that was another important thing to be able to say on stage was, and through her mic, I felt like she was with me, because it was, you think someone with that much just gravitas and so grandiose to be kind of like, yeah, whatever, but to immediately, how do I help? And she even like came out and sang one of the songs with me. And I mean, we were planning on having her sing on one of the songs. And so that was kind of rough to, you know, you think people are always going to be there. And so, and that kind of was just, it's definitely one of the regrets, to not be, I didn't pull it off in time, you know? So that's also another like reason where I just was, as far as, because people want to put you in a box. They're like, well, no, you're the guitar player. What are you doing? You know, I was like, no, fuck you. I you know, just because she immediately had my back on it. So it always like really made me not afraid to be just like in your face with, you know, I also do this kind of thing, because that's how she was. So she's with us.
Yeah, she was beautiful, and I'll just never forget. I showed up at a show. I didn't know who Huntress was. I just walked in and was like, oh my God, look at that.
Yeah.
And just kind of women in metal, like we have a lot more role models now. Like even now, like than we did like 4 or 5 years ago. But just like seeing her, I was like, oh my God, look at that. Look up on stage and see what exists in the world. And like anything you want in this world and anything you want in this industry, you can have. And just seeing it done like that with her stage presence, I will never forget it. And she is one of those women that I just look up to so much. And I'm such a better woman for having seen her. And every, like, not even just metal, just having seen her, I'm so much better off for it. So just wanted to talk about her and
I love that.
Honor her memory in like a really great way and kind of talk about that as well.
Yeah. And on top of that, it's crazy. There would be shows where people would be like flipping her off and just like, and
God.
it was, oh yeah. And like, sometimes throw shit, and she just never, like, instead of cowering, she would like fucking go after him. And it was like a thing where there was, we had toured with a Monomarith in Europe, and who I fucking love, and just greatest dudes. But some of their fans can be a little like not welcoming. And it was just, I just,
what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things, like they want to get to the front, and it's not just their fans. It's, there's a certain type of person who, I'm here to see my band, and I'm gonna pout and just not enjoy.
Yeah.
Like the band you want to see is gonna go on at the same time, no matter what you do. And instead of just like, watch this band, I'm getting entertained while I wait for what I really want to see.
Yeah.
These fucking people would be so like, just, man, like, be on their phones. And there was this one time, that I mean, it's happened a lot, but like, I went to this dude who was just Mr. Pouty Pants, and I blew him a kiss. And he was just like, ooh. And it's funny because Jill didn't see me do it, turns around, looks at him, and then goes like kisses her middle finger at the guy. She didn't realize I just fucked with him like a second before that. And this guy, I thought his head was going to explode. He was so mad. And it was just, that's who she was. Like, and, it wasn't like, oh, Eli's fucking with this guy, I'm going to go fuck with him too. It was, she's just like, oh yeah, look at this asshole. And then would go like dick with him. And that was, I always liked that she had that. And, at the same time, like, still just killing it on stage, and just had the whole stage presence, and just like was really into just the complete like aesthetic of it. And she basically had the 3 Huntress albums, like she had it planned out from like day one, as far as like the type of different, I guess, characters of it. So it would be like the maiden, the mother, and the crone, and each one of those had their own album. So it was like Static was like the crone. It was just really cool. I envy that. Like we were talking about design stuff earlier.
Yeah.
I'll do concept records for everything. And we're just like, okay, cool. What's the artwork going to be? You're like, fuck, I don't know. So that, like, she always had that in mind too, which I definitely envy.
Yeah. Absolutely. So as women, like in metal, men have all the examples in the world of how to present yourself, how to look at the world, and how to be in the world, and how to interact with the world. Women, not so much. So I really appreciate you sharing those things with me, because I only saw her play once, maybe twice, and I learned so much from her. If it was once, I think it was just once, but if it was just once, watching everything she did up on stage taught me so much in that like one viewing of her up on stage. So thank you so much for sharing that, because you kind of have to figure it out when you're a woman. Men have so many more examples, and I just really appreciate it. And there's so many like really weird situations that are put upon you that you have to think of. You know what I mean? Like, if I do this, how is it going to come back to bite me later? Kind of situation. And I really appreciate her attitude in dealing with those things, because you have to think about what's the best way to respond in a lot of situations. So I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. No, I my heart goes out to all of you who, because it's like I really think about just how much more of these things that like we as men in the industry just don't have to think about that women do all the time. And it's something that, I mean, it's getting better, but it's still there. It's still a lot of like minefields, like you were saying, of how you handle something in a certain way that would come back and bite you, or a dude would never have to think about that.
Yeah, totally. Like, how do you deal with someone like a promoter hitting on you? How do you turn someone down, but like still do it in a way to where they would hire you down the line? How do you like maintain friendships and relationships? How do you demand respect? Like my girlfriend, Alicia Taylor with the Cherry Bombs.
Oh yeah.
So her and I talk all the time because we're both like women in the industry and we can laugh about it. She like, to get the logistics, because she travels with so much of a stage, like she has to know what's your ceiling height, what are like the dimensions for the bars, because she has to hang stuff. And I don't know if it's still like this, but for a long time they had a fake email that was like a guy's name at cherrybombs.com, because people would actually respond to the guy's name versus a girl's name in the email. So like they wouldn't respond to like if it was like Alicia at cherrybombs.com, but if it was like Zach TM at cherrybombs.com, immediate. Super funny.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
It is hilarious. Well, there is, so I won't say the name of the band, but we were going to do this tour, and then the tour manager of the band, the headlining band, was like always hitting Jill up and going back and forth, and then like, oh, I can't wait to have a drink with you, and then it got flirtier and flirtier and flirtier, and so like you said, she was kind of, oh, how do I be nice but also not? So he was just really, really loving. And then I think the first day he realized she wasn't single, that she was with Blake, our guitar player. And this dude made the whole tour, amazing tour, but he made it fucking unbearable. He was so shitty to us every single day, and would like not bend on anything, was mean to her, all because she had a boyfriend. And that's not something any dude in a band would, I mean, obviously there's, exceptions, but it was a thing. Like the tour was like borderline miserable because of this fucking guy and her just having a boyfriend who was like in the band on the tour. So the fact that he thought that he was going to hook up with her on tour, and then that realization that it wasn't going to happen, he treated an entire crew of people like shit. I mean, to the point where he wouldn't turn in our guest list. And the dude showed up, and Tyler was like, dude, we went through all the like hoops that you make us jump through to turn in a guest list, and they're here and they can't get in and watch the set. And we're like going on. And this dude was like, I'm going to fucking fight you, to Tyler, right? When he's about to go on. And he's like, you want to do this? You want to go? And I'll kick your ass. And Tyler, sweet Tyler, not backing down. Adrenaline, his comeback is, I would like that. And I was like,
I would like that.
I mean, I love that you're not backing down, but what? And then
that's hilarious. Yeah.
And then we like intro music is going up and like, whoa, we got to go perform. And it's just like, and we're on stage, not realizing that we're about to fight this tour manager. And then he even like got in his face like after that. And we're just like, and it always because she wasn't available for him to hook up with.
Yeah. I have all the stories like that in the world, but I will say one funny thing and then we'll move on. But yeah, I want to do more mainstream opportunities and I want to do acting. And I had a guy like through a funny, sexy TikTok, ridiculous video I posted like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks, something like that. I actually got offered a movie role, like a real movie. Yeah. Like a director, and like what I exuded was exactly what he wanted for this super badass role with real movie, real actors. And it was like, I don't want to explain the premise of the movie because that's his movie, but it was like femme fatale, sexy and fun. And he super won me for it. But it was the same exact thing where I communicated with him a bunch and then he started sending good morning texts. And then he just started getting so weird. And I really like, it was a movie and it would film in LA in October and I could have it and it would be great. But I was like, I don't know if it's all those documentaries that have come out about like Abercrombie and Fitch and Victoria's Secret. And I was like, not fucking worth it. So I bowed out and I was just like, it'll come however I want it. But like, fuck this guy. Yeah. And he was even trying to condition me like, you know, I can really get crazy sometimes, you know, but I don't mean it. You know, you can take a lot of credit. You know, he was trying to condition me.
Set you up so when he gets.
So when he starts acting insane, well, I told you in advance and I was like, fuck this. And I was so proud of myself that I bowed the fuck out. And I was like, not today. No.
Good for you.
Fuck that. I was just like, fuck this. Absolutely not.
Well, it's like that because I've always heard the stories of like dudes who, you know, whether they're in bands or whatever, if there's a girl who's like a singer or something, like I'm a producer and I could help you out with your music. And it's just, I can barely help myself out. And so it's just like, and that's the thing. I hate that, like, just using this, like you were saying, like, oh, I can do this for you if you do this for me. And it's just like, bro, just ask her out and you don't need to. That stuff makes me grossed out.
Yeah. Now the guy is watching every single one of my Instagram stories, has my number and I like want to block him and I let him down easy. And I was just like, I just don't have the time. But now I'm like, now I have this like intense, crazy man in LA that has proved to me that he's not crazy. So that's good.
Yeah. And then and now it just sucks because it's like,
well, like, he really is in LA. Like, yeah, he really is like a director in LA. So I thought about blocking him and everything and kind of putting it off on him when I, you know, was like, oh, this just isn't the thing for me. But then I was like, oh, I'll be nice. Like, sorry, I just don't have the time, you know?
Yeah.
That's his life, but yay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, back to questions. You are beautiful to look at. You are a feast for the eyes. So I am obsessed with history. I'm obsessed with heritage, always have been. What is your nationality? Like, when did you start growing your hair out? What does it mean to you? Because I've always really been into like history and heritage and things like that. And you are, you know, you represent so much of that. It's very strong with you. So what is your heritage? What are you? And what does that mean to you?
I'm third generation. Like my parents were both born here, and then their parents were born in Mexico. Okay. Which and that's a whole like side of my heritage that I'm finally like really, really excited to embrace and learn about. And it was a thing where growing up, I was ashamed of it because I got made fun of so much. So I spent a lot of my formative years trying to get as far away from my history and heritage as I could. And now I'm really embracing this beautiful culture and history. And then also I did my 23andMe, and I am 36% Native American as well. And it's just one of those, it's funny because it's as far as I haven't traced like what tribe or anything like that, but it's funny that if the tribe is from south of the border, it's just like, oh, well, that's not really Native American. And I was like, but that wasn't a line that wasn't there for like centuries, you know? And what's also been cool is like we were talking about acting, is once I got into doing this and growing my hair out, and well, I grew my hair out in like 2009 for the like last time, but I always had long hair, then cut it. Always had long hair, then cut it. So most of my life was in the awkward stage.
Yeah.
So and I was joining Holy Grail, and I just decided to like, I always had bad luck with haircuts. So I was just like, I'm over it. I'm gonna save money and not get a haircut. But, and then, I was in a metal band, and I just really identified with it. And it's one of those things with doing roles. If they're looking for a Native American, they're like, oh yeah, look at that guy.
Yeah.
That guy's got to be in the tribe. And so with that, I was doing like extra work when I was home from, just because I like movies and I really liked being on set. And I ended up getting like this recurring thing on the show Westworld, speaking of HBO, as one of like the Ghost Nation warriors. And I just got really excited about that Native American culture, like on set, because it was everyone was kind of like learning Lakota. And there was a guy on set who basically was trying to make sure that it's funny that this fictional tribe on the show was authentic.
Has to be authentic.
Yeah, but it was authentic to like Lakota culture. And it's funny, I made a bunch of friends on that show that I'm still friends with now and talk to often. And it just got me really excited to, because they were so attached to their heritage and Native. I was excited. I'm like, well, I want to know what I'm about. You know, what do I got to offer? Yeah. But also on that, we did this overnight shoot for 8 hours, and it was with Anthony Hopkins. And I was like, it's one of those things you figure you can't make eye contact with him, blah, blah, blah. And he just came up and said, hey, I'm Tony. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. You're a knight. I'm not going to call you Tony. Anthony Hopkins.
It's so funny. Like so many of the things you say, like when you podcast, you smile and nod, but you're silent. And there's so many things that you've said today that I just like couldn't help but like laugh and emote on. And you're not supposed to do that on podcasts.
Really?
It's such a funny episode because there's so many things you're saying that I'm just like, I'm breaking the third wall. You're supposed to like nod and be like, yeah, and not say anything and mess up the sound clip. And so much of what you've said today has made me absolutely lose my mind and just laugh and everything. It's so funny.
Yeah, I didn't know that was like the because I listen to a lot of podcasts and I never realized. Yeah, okay.
Well, and even so, like I've gone through a few different producers, and I lost my first one to Spotify. That's how good she was. And she taught me, you like, instead of saying, yeah, got it. You just smile.
Yeah.
And let them keep talking.
Yeah.
But I've even heard, like, I've heard Josta and I've even heard Jose, like, do like, yeah. And I've even heard, like, Jose do some ums and some likes. So I'm like, okay, you know.
Yeah, it's
we just do whatever we can, you know.
Right. You try to be conscious of the likes and the ums, but it also needs to be conversational as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Tony.
so my boy Tony, Anthony Hopkins to the normal people, but he was like so nice. And then I also watched him. I could be wrong. It kind of looked like it was the first time he'd ever read the script. And it was a giant monologue.
Mm-hmm.
And he's fumbling through it. And he's like, he was like stuttering. I'm like, how the fuck are they going to film this? But by the end, he's completely off book, doing it all in one take. And it was like, oh, that's Anthony Hopkins. And so weird. I had to be frozen on the ground because I just got attacked by a bear. And I'm bleeding, but now I'm frozen. But where it was, I could just sit there and watch him work. And I was so blown away to where I was I want in on this craft. I'll never be that good, but if I start now, I'm interested in it. I'm interested in movies and directing and writing and all that stuff is just really exciting for me. So I like the next day signed up for an acting class. But funny, after he wouldn't go to his trailer, he would just come over and just shoot the shit. And there was one time, because I couldn't look at my hand because I was frozen and was holding myself up in the dirt. This is really bizarre when you take like sound clips out. Anyway, I was frozen, like not emotionally.
You're painting a picture. It's great. Don't you dare say that. It's wonderful. Yeah. We're all right there with you. Don't back down now. Keep going.
So there's something crawling on my hand, but I'll ruin this super long take if I freak out. And I just have to take it. And I'm like, whatever it is, I hope it doesn't bite me or sting me or, plant eggs in me or who knows.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as they yell cut, I'm like, motherfucker, and I'm flipping out. And then I was like, okay, what was on me? And I can't find it. And I'm like, fuck. Like it could be anything. And then Anthony Hopkins walks over and goes, oh, I saw it. I was like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, it was this big tarantula. And I'm like, no shit. And then he goes, starts laughing. I'm messing with you. And I'm like, fucking. And then he starts telling me about how he had arachnophobia. And then on the set of Zorro, there was a spider wrangler. He's like, I hear you're afraid of spiders. And he put a tarantula on him to have him get over the fear. And he's like looking at me. He's acting it out. He's like, and then he's like, but by the time it was here on his shoulder, he was fine with it. And he's like, I love them. They're beautiful and blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like looking at him. And then he's like, I mean, I don't invite them into my house, but I still respect them. Cause I think he thought, I was like, oh, you got spiders all over your house, man. I was like, no, like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, that's what started the whole, it was weird. I just really liked learning about it. And then I ended up, getting an agent and kind of doing the whole thing. And I audition for stuff all the time. And then I ended up like booking things here and there, but it's just one of those weird things where I just really like it. Like I just worked on something yesterday. It's funny. I know I said I was hungover, but in between the 2 days of working, I actually went over to Blake and Tyler's place. And I stayed there. We had a couple drinks up in LA. So it's just, it's like they're my best friends. So yeah, I really, really like it. And I ended up booking things here and there. I got to work on the Studio 666 movie. And work with, speaking of like, losing people, like, I got to be on set with Taylor Hawkins and just with like Dave Grohl and stuff like that. And it's awesome because BJ, the director of the movie, was a Holy Grail fan and an Ignite fan. So he was like tripping out when I got the Ignite gig. And I booked a role on Pam and Tommy. I don't know if you've seen that
I
show.
have, because I did my research.
Yeah.
I love it, but I don't think I saw you in it because I had to stop watching it because it was so brutal. It was like so upsetting to watch as a woman. It was so unfair. Like, I never finished the series.
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever saw you in it. Like, I might finish it to go see where you were in it, but that series was so upsetting to watch.
Yeah. I mean, I don't get it, but I understand.
I mean, no, like, if you were there, if you understand the story, anyone with a heart understands and gets it. So I had to stop watching because it was so bad. But I think it's so cool that you were in there. I think that's awesome.
Well,
I love that.
It's funny. They ended up cutting like all my lines. So
you're just like brainless metal dude that's like,
not even brainless metal guy. I'm brainless bass player of Third Eye Blind.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. So now I can add that to my resume that I was in Third Eye Blind as well.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, but so that's
it supposed to be Third Eye Blind?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. See, I had to turn it off earlier too. Yeah, like I don't even know. Yeah. It was so hard to watch. I had to like stop watching it because I was like, this is so rough. I can't. But okay, cool.
I totally like it. It kind of, I mean, good on them for telling that story, but it made me. Yeah, it made me uncomfortable as well. I felt so bad for her.
So, yeah, it's just, a lot,
And that's just her story. Like, I can't even imagine.
Well, we're watching the effect of that play out right now with what Tommy is doing. He's having some sort of mental reaction of some sort, I believe, to that documentary and his story and his legacy. I think that Tommy Lee is having his own after the fact reaction. I don't think all of his flashing is coming from nowhere. I think he's having like after effects.
Yeah.
Of his story being out recently. And that's just my personal opinion that he's having his own issues with that in that way. So I think the after effects, because how it's portrayed in that show, he was trying to be chivalrous and, and they were married. He was trying to be chivalrous and like stand by his woman and do everything he possibly could, for his girl in that situation. And it's still like, there's nothing that could fix it or help it. And that has to really be awful for any man in that situation too.
Yeah, absolutely. And on top of, and yeah, at the end of the day, it is a TV show, and there's a lot of stuff that's exaggerated. Yeah. Like I'm pretty sure the thing with Third Eye Blind actually didn't happen. But still, it was to tell the story of where Motley Crue was on top of the world, and then you got a band like Third Eye Blind. No, these are the cool dudes now. Like these are the in thing, and on top of that, he's having to deal with Motley Crue not being where it was at that moment. He's just all these other things, and just it's a crazy story. But
it's rough, and like we won't tangent off of this, but it's very interesting because I've had a lot of friends who were at different times in their career on top of the world. And they've had to like refine their identity in different places of passion where it's not on top of the world. But they still love it for what it is. So they're like, my marriage didn't work, but damn it, I love playing guitar, and this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really interesting thing when musicians have to like look at, it's very interesting, like seeing where different people go in different places in their career and things like that. And then where you settle and where you find yourself, and highs and highs of lows and lows and things like that, for sure.
Yeah. And it's, I also realized that, nothing's forever, and everything has its season. And there's going to be, winters and summers of career and life. And I read Slash's book, and he's talking about after the Use Your Illusions were out, and he's kind of not going to play with Guns N' Roses anymore. And he's just like, I felt like my career's over and I'm just a burnout. And I'm thinking, it sucks. What is he, like 52? No, he's like 32 and already feeling like, oh, that's it. My career's over. And I'm just like, wow. And that was, obviously he's pulled out of it and, still, but at the same time, it's not where, like, I can't imagine where it was in the early 90s when it was like Guns N' Roses was like on the top of the world to have that. And I'm sure they were just, oh, this is just how it is. It's going to be forever.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people still go to Guns N' Roses shows. So I think they're okay. But
yeah, like now we're kind of doing like a podcast about fame, but yeah. And
yeah,
I'm sure they kind of, like prefer it to have calmed down a little bit.
Yeah.
That also sounds awful and terrible as well. If you've ever watched any mainstream movie about, a really large musician, they just talk about, how much it sucks when they get mobbed everywhere. So I'm sure it's like a nice, happy, chill, mellow place. So that's good.
Right.
Yeah. So I wanted to kind of talk about like the transition from metal to hardcore. And it's kind of beautifully personified with your long hair, how I know you.
Yeah.
And then in looking at some of the press photos where it's like pulled back and more like OC hardcore and like more of like a hardcore look. And just knowing you as this metal guy for all these years, my mind is blown. And what happened to me during the pandemic, so I love Hatebreed so much. They're like one of my favorite bands. And I think it was like 2019, they were doing like 20 year or 25th year or something like that anniversary tour. And I knew Hatebreed as a metal band. I really didn't know about hardcore. I saw Godfathers of Hardcore. I saw the documentary, and then I showed up at the Hatebreed show. And I didn't know that Agnostic Front was going to be there and they were opening up for them. And I lost my mind. And after watching the documentary and then the show, and then the AF guys were there, and then I was hanging out with them and talking to them. And I was like, oh my God, hardcore. What's hardcore? And the same exact feeling I got from metal, I started to get from hardcore. So during the pandemic, it's kind of funny because like Hatebreed is a hardcore band, but I didn't know that. That's like their roots. I just knew them as a metal band. And it's kind of funny because a lot of people like start off Hatebreed hardcore and then like metal. But for me, it was like metal. I know Hatebreed. So then I got into hardcore, which is completely the opposite of how it all happens. So it's kind of funny. I feel like the same thing kind of happened to you, but talking to you, you kind of liked it and were a fan of hardcore music many years before. But let's kind of talk about the duality and like the transition, metal dude to hardcore. Let's talk about that. It's just a different vibe.
It's funny because I'm kind of, I was always into hardcore bands, but it was the same thing that with you, where I liked these bands, and it wasn't until somebody told me, you're like, well, that's a hardcore band. Like, what? Oh yeah. And same thing with Hatebreed. And like I said, like Sick of It All and Biohazard and Propane and even Life of Agony is technically a hardcore band. And so it was this thing I just didn't really, I knew that there was elements of that got me really excited, and where I just, to the complete level of expression of just over the top like energy, it was a lot of things came from hardcore and were like based on hardcore and coming from, and even Suicidal Tendencies was technically a skate punk band, but when I got into them, like they were just a really, really good thrash band. Like in the 90s, and I went back and so I kind of always had this this where like genres kind of didn't matter. I liked what I liked, and yeah, my home base is metal. Like it is like heavy metal. I'll hear everything through like a metal filter, if you will. Like I even listen to classical music, and I in my head I'm like, okay, if I stole that and played it on guitar, it would be rad because it'd be this, and it'd be just blast beat on this part, kind of that. I always kind of hear it from that standpoint, but it was I didn't realize it was like a transition kind of until we started playing out and talking to people, because that was just like Ignite was another band, like especially melodically was a band that I took influence from on stuff, but it was like when I did it, it wasn't like, oh, okay, now I'm going to do the hardcore song. It was always like, okay, I'm going to take this vibe that Ignite has or other hardcore bands, and then I'm going to do my thing on it. And then it's just going to be what it is. And it's, I mean, even there's even a song like Holy Grail song off of Ride the Void, where if you strip it away, it's basically a Death by Stereo song. And I mean, they have a lot of metal elements in it. So it wasn't too much of a stretch for me, but it is a thing where I don't know as many of the bands as the other dudes know as well. And then even more so with like a lot of the punk bands, it's like I like the bands that like the punk bands that I like, and I'm really into them. But as far as it's the same thing with us, we kind of know it's rare to be, hey, this band in the metal world, and you be like, no, I don't know who that is. To not have that in this whole other genre. But it's cool because I'm discovering all these amazing bands that I've never heard. And it's cool because I'll get into something. I'm like, oh, these guys are rad. And then, oh, we're playing with them. What? And it's like this whole new world for me. And then it's funny, all the Ignite guys would just go up like, hey, what's up, man? And they're already friends with them, had toured with them for years. And so it's been a cool transition. And also what's really cool with Ignite, they're not like, oh, you got to dress like this or you got to do that, or hardcore guys don't do that, so don't do this. They're just like, man, just do whatever you want, like truthfully, like and so where if I'm gonna, it's funny, but with them I kind of just get on stage how I dress kind of every day. There isn't like, all right, I mean, but you do want to have that element, like especially with metal, where you are gonna like change a little bit to go on stage because you want it to show that you're putting on a show. And for me, I was always, if I had like certain stage clothes, it was like I was putting on the uniform. Yeah. Like I was suiting up to play.
Yeah,
like,
I remember like cutoffs and like biceps and like cuffs and kind of, chains and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it was all that stuff. Yeah. And then now I'm kind of, it's cool because I feel comfortable wearing whatever I want. Like if I'm going to go on stage with like, a vest that has like a death patch on it, then it's not like, oh, well, that's not hardcore. I'm just like, and so that's been kind of the fun part of this is really just more trying to find, okay, what exactly is me and not metal or hardcore, and trying to become more authentic just with myself altogether. And even still, like just with, I mean, I'm sure we all went through it with like the lockdown. You kind of had to really examine yourself and where you're at. And I'm trying to find exactly what I do want out of life, and what like pursuits were just, oh, I decided I wanted this goal. And is this all there is? That, does that define me just because I've been working at this for so long? Or like, what do I actually want, or what do I want to spend my time on? And that this has just been an extension of that, because yeah, we're playing shows, and yeah, I do know how to tour, but this is different because I'm also going on stage and not setting up a guitar and not doing that. And that it has been a whole, it's like, it's weird because it's like this information of being a musician and then taking the instrument away. And now like, it's just singing. And so that's been really, really cool to find another level of myself and explore that. And like I was saying, like we were talking about earlier, where you find those different versions of yourself in like the different seasons. And this is just cool because it's like, okay, this is that season. And, you know, I get messages from people and it's all from love. And it's just like, but what about Holy Grail? I don't like thinking of you not just being a shredder. I can't, you know, and I get that. Yeah. I do the same thing, but it just is funny. And it's, I love, and I'm really proud of everything I did with Holy Grail, but it was just like, okay, that our singer quit in the beginning of the lockdown. We kind of hadn't really been doing much to begin with. And it was one of those, okay, did we find a new singer? And I was just like, well, I have more to offer than just being that guy. Mm-hmm. And so it was something that I was part of. It wasn't like, this is my only vision of what I have to offer. And so that was exciting to branch, like just do other things. And in that, it's just, I'm also not cutting off the fact that we could play together again, you know?
Well, I'll say this, like, it's really blown my mind because I didn't know about Ignite. I started listening to their music just because like I know you, but I was just seeing these posts and I was like, he's in a hardcore band. What? And I didn't pay so much attention to it. I was like, I'll catch up with it later, like whatever this is.
Yeah.
And then I see you like in clubs in Italy with like super low ceilings doing like the real hardcore thing. And like the hardcore thing is like low ceilings, clubs in Europe, on beaches and like crazy destinations I've never heard of. And I've just been like, wow, what's going on there? And then for the type of genre that it is, and I really like music like that. And I love a lot of like California bands that have that sound.
Yeah.
And then just listening to your voice is so good, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Your voice is beautiful. And I didn't know it would be as good as it is. I didn't know it would be that good. And it is so mind-blowing to me to know you from guitar and then look at this thing you're doing over here, listen to it. And to me, it feels like the sound of your voice and the songs that you guys put out, they all sound like anthems that I've loved since I was in middle school.
Yeah.
Like I really feel like that's how the new Ignite album feels. They feel like anthem songs, and your voice on it sounds like the same voice I've been listening to since I was 14 or 15 that I've like known and grown to love, but it's brand new. So it's blowing my mind going like, okay, here's this metal guy I've known forever. And then he's doing this hardcore band thing and it's so good. It's mind blowing. And I'm like, wait, what? The voice is beautiful. It's gorgeous. And then the music that you guys put out together, it's like, I'm one of those people that I love some of the same albums I've been listening to since I was 14 or whatever. And if I'm going to Walmart, I just like want to listen to that. Or if I'm going to the gym, I just want to listen to something I know. The new album sounds like an album I've been listening to for years. Like on the first listen with so many of those songs, it sounds like I've been listening to them for years and I've known those songs for years. And your voice is perfect for it. So cool. Yay. Like your voice is like perfect for it. And it's really crazy. And I can't believe that, kind of on the first go with this new record, new album, it's just like right there. And that's so hard to do. Do you feel that, or has anyone else told you that about the new music?
Yeah. And thank you very, very, very much for saying that. That means more than you know.
Yeah, it's really true. It sounds like, everyone has their, the songs that made them like 5-7 years ago, where like, oh, the crowd gets jumping and going when they hear that song. And kind of like when you go to a show and bands start playing new music and no one knows it, and no one likes it. And everyone's like, oh, this sucks. Your new songs feel like those ones that everyone knows and loves and has for years. Okay, I'll shut up. Now you go.
No. I have friends and people who are just like, dude, I feel like I'm back in high school, or I'm back like right out of high school in this really, it does take a lot of people back to a certain time that was, they didn't kind of realize like how exciting it was at the time when you heard like Pennywise on the radio and like Bad Religion and stuff like just playing on the radio, and kind of going back to that. But it's cool because it's these great songwriters, like all the dudes who wrote from a specific time are still in the band writing these amazing melodies and amazing songs, and it's just I was, and that was like the thing. Like, it's funny, the songs that I got excited about didn't even make the record, but it was the thing where hearing the new stuff, and it was in this vein of what's on the record, where I'm sure you can imagine where I'm like, no, I have to be a part of this. It's so good. And it's and doing what I basically just kind of doing my part. And obviously there's certain parts of I didn't like tailor it to Ignite, but at the same time it really made me take away all the bells and whistles of a singer that I thought made you an interesting, compelling singer, and be like, no, just what is my voice? Just straight up singing, no over Bruce Dickinson vibrato, not needing to do a bunch of like high black metal screams for no reason. And just like, there was, because I guess when the Alien Satan stuff comes out, it's basically that, where it's all the other stuff, but it was really cool. Like in this, I really found just what I just stripped them, not like they made me, but it was like, no, like just sing it, dude. Just sing the song as you, like, get out of the way of your voice. And so that was like a really, really cool thing that I discovered in doing the Ignite record. And it does make me go back to a time that I forgot was how really exciting. So that's really cool to hear. And also the hardcore is one of those things like where it lends itself to making it onto a cardio playlist or a workout playlist. And for me, it's because I'm the same way. I'll listen to the same stuff I did 25 years ago and get that excited about it. And so when people tell me like, dude, I got this song on my cardio playlist, it means more to me than I think they know, because I know how hard it is for a song to get on my playlist. And I was like, I got on a workout playlist. We did it, so but that's the cool thing about hardcore, is it really lends itself to that. And I think also we really wanted to write some anthems, and we also wanted it to lyrically be really heavy and really just actually like say something too. And Nick Hill, the guitar player, was kind of the main writer in that. He put some beautiful stuff down. And Brett, also another, like, he's the OG Ignite guy, like actually started the band in 1993, which it's like, that's also crazy to be part of this giant legacy of a band. And it's rare to find, like, even talking to, like, we played with Descendants and I got to talk to the singer Milo, and it was like a thing, like he'd always known about Ignite. And so it's weird to be kind of part of this like huge legacy, which is really, really cool. But at the same time, it's also, I'm not just like some kid off the street. I also have my own history. I've also like cut my teeth and, with Huntress and Holy Grail and many, 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 many failed bands before that. So it's crazy how long I've been at this.
I don't know. It kind of feels like really cool character development or discovery, because I really love entertainment and you must too as well. And just kind of seeing you in a different situation, in a different band. And I love metal, of course, like I'm a metal girl, but kind of talking and thinking about how you perform as a metal musician, it's kind of like overperforming in your face. And that's so different to just sit back and just emote without having to be in your face like you do in metal.
Yeah.
So wildly different. Yeah, it's so wildly different. Well, and I wanted to kind of thank you, because let's talk about The Butcher and Me. I just went through one of the weirdest things in my life ever. I don't ever, people always come to me for advice. I'm a Pisces, I'm an empath. I give people advice mainly.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't ever really do anything that's fucked up or mean or weird or sad. And I was hanging out with very good friends in the industry, and I accidentally like let something slip that was like history I shouldn't have known about. And I've never in my life ever done that before, ever in my entire life, ever.
Yeah.
And the guilt I carry for that, and like I hurt like 2 people in that, and hurting people and the guilt I have for it. And it also was like someone I was kind of talking to. The reason why I knew it was because it was someone I was talking to. And then I was hanging out with someone they were friends with. And it was kind of like history they had together. And it just like came out accidentally.
Yeah.
And I've just never done that before in my entire life. And I have so much wrapped up in my identity as being a safe person in the industry. Like, everyone I know, they tell me secrets and they tell me things because I don't say anything about anything to anyone ever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only way it works. That's the only way you're allowed to be around. That's the only way, it's a safe space for everyone to be.
Right.
And it was kind of like the weird thing that came out of that was like, honestly, it was kind of maybe a good thing to take a break from the situation. And now we're kind of like, he's processing, and now we are kind of like taking a break since that incident happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like a weird thing that like it maybe needed to cool off.
Yeah.
So I would never in a million years ever do what happened. It wasn't like that bad, but it just like wasn't in my character to let anything slip like that. But it had consequences. So that song, The Butcher and Me, made me feel like, was there something inside me that did that thing on purpose to just like hatch it out and get rid of this thing in my life? So The Butcher and Me, like I can barely like live with myself, like accidentally doing something that like hurt someone.
Mm-hmm.
So I really resonate with that song, The Butcher and Me. And I'm like, God, what kind of asshole are you to have let that thing happen?
Mm-hmm.
I really resonate with that song. Unfortunately.
Wow. That's
unfortunately.
Of course. And that's a different take on that song than I've really heard. And it's interesting that, because you said that like you let it slip. And that's not just something that you do. And it might be, like you said, it might have needed to happen. And because that Nick wrote that song, and obviously it came from a situation that like, they were all kind of getting out of, but I connected with it on a whole other level. Like even, like I was really dealing with something like, especially like when we shot the video, like I was kind of, I was basically like coming out of like a relationship, and I was dealing with it. It was just crazy. Like it was all that happening all at the same time. And it was like, I didn't really know, it's not that I didn't know how to deal with it. It was just like, oh, it's a video shoot, so I'm gonna have a drink, and I'm also like trying to like deal with these like emotions and everything. And so like that video, I'm just like over the top, like thinking about the words, messing up the words, just because it
you're
was like
thinking about them and they're so
no,
easy.
yeah, and it was like complete raw emotion when we were filming that video, because it was like, yeah, we tracked it and it was in the can, but it was also like happening in real time, the things that I was connecting to in that song. And so, but it's funny because I hear a lot of people like come to me and just like, yeah, that song like really, I was going through something and I got out of a really toxic situation, and it was realizing that this song was just like, yeah, it's we all find ourselves, whether it's with a partner or a business partner, or just or just like certain friends or even family members who aren't serving you, and you have to really just make that decision of, it all comes to like what's best for you, or what you need to change or get out of your life. And that was another thing, that to go circle back to something we had talked to before, that I really liked about hardcore, that I was always trying to kind of bring into metal, was that a lot of like the lyrical content was about positive things, and overcoming difficult situations, and being the best version of yourself. And I always resonated with that, like even where like writing lyrics for like Holy Grail stuff, like there was a record that I truly wanted it to read like a hardcore record. Like if you read the lyrics, you wouldn't think, it's a metal record. I want it to be so inspiring to people to overcome to whatever they're dealing with. And that was something that I got really excited that we got to really dive deep into with the new Ignite songs, was just like, really digging deep and being like, okay, this sucks in my life, but how are we going to get out of it? What are we going to do to make it better? And it was really cool because I got to, like I brought in a couple songs that I wrote like top to bottom as well. And so it was like, I got to go back and write like just the hardcore song that I've always wanted to write. And that was the song This Day. But it was I had just watched the movie 13th, and was just really, really learning about the like kind of real history of slavery, and just all the like systematic abuse to African Americans that is still there. And it was just like I wanted to really just kind of bring that to light in a song. And it was really cool, because then like they knew what the song was about, that how supportive they were, and really excited to like, yeah, let's put this out there, like, and let's like really say that. But it was also funny because they were like it's the most old school Ignite like hardcore song that we have, and then the new guy wrote it, mm-hmm. So that was cool, and we play it live, and it's fun that these songs fit in the set like seamlessly. And even kind of what you were saying earlier, where a band plays the new songs and then people are like, oh, okay, I'm gonna wait for my song. It's been so inspiring to see people go just as crazy for like the new songs as the old songs. Like there's like sometimes like we'll like rip into like Anti-Complicity Anthem like right after like a song that was from like the 2000s album, and people go just as crazy. And I'm like, dude, this is a new song. So that's been really, really, really cool. But it's a far tangent, circling around thing from, I understand what you're saying about The Butcher and Me. And I mean, depending on how I feel, like I'll talk about that before the song, you know, and really try to inspire people to be a better version of themselves and really try to find those toxic parts of their life, whether it's from something like exterior with other people or something within yourself that you're like, okay, that's not serving me or anyone. I need to cut that out. And so that's, I mean, yeah, it is all fun and we should all have fun, but at the same time, it's like, you know, it's there every day is a chance to better yourself and be better than you were yesterday. So don't beat yourself up.
I can't not, but it's kind of funny, like, and we'll wrap up soon because I'm sure you have to go. But it is kind of funny because I was driving yesterday and I was like, what have I not listened to in a million years? What's something totally random? And I was like, I used to listen to Blue October. Cool.
Oh, yeah.
So I put on like Blue October because I used to listen to that in high school. And the song like Hate Me, it made so much more sense like now as a woman in my 30s than when it did when I was 17 and I had no idea. And you just sing along with it. And I think it's so funny because there's like so much music and rock and metal that talks about really heavy topics, but we don't actually internalize it. And it's like The Butcher in Me is like really telling you to like get rid of and like hack off. And it's kind of like self-deprecating, like, why am I in this situation? And like trying to be your best self. And I think that's like one of the first times, well, not the first times, but it was a time that really resonated with me. Like, oh my God, this is more than music. This is like a life path. And it's not just like something that sounds good, but it's like, it's real, you know, it's a real message in here.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, you know, this song Hate Me by Blue October, listening to that I was like, wow, that's a real message. And like The Butcher and Me, like, wow, it doesn't just sound good. That's a real message. And a lot of like metal fans, we just kind of listen to stuff and we have our camps that we like. And I love Marilyn Manson, or, oh, I love this band or whatever, or I love Ghost or whatever. But it's more than music. It's like actual life topics. And I haven't always like noticed that or realized that at all.
So yeah, I do that too. And it's like the whole thing of, like, you know, you can never step in the same river twice because, you know, things change, but it's like I heard this because I have gotten into like a lot of the whole like stoic just philosophies and things like that. And one of the things that like that says is when you like, let's say you go back and reread a book. Well, the book didn't change, none of the words changed, but you changed. So now it is going to be like a different book. And the same thing where you go back to a song that you just, it sounded cool. I was, you know, good vibes, like, oh, that guitar solo rips or whatever. I remember the double bass being crazy on this part. And then you go back and like, now you've changed, you've gone through things. And then now you're able to receive the message and the lyrics. And you're just like, whoa, I never knew it was like, I didn't know it was talking about that, you know, or I
never knew it was that deep. What? That's crazy. So what are some of your favorite lyrics off of that song? That real hardcore one that they were like, oh yeah.
Well, I mean, liked how, I mean, it was a commentary on, with even just with like cops getting away with things and, talking about like the retribution is basically, it says a red tape paid vacation. Mm-hmm. And so you just go on like a leave and that was
straight up paid leave.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was like really like fun to try to, I mean, not fun, but just like it's not, it was a challenge, but I do enjoy the challenge because it is like a puzzle to be blunt with what you're trying to say, but at the same time, also be creative with it to where it is, where you'll use allegory to add so much more, like layers to it. So if, you know, talking about,
well, I'm going to cut you off real quick because I think I've never done this before, but I think I can say it better and I know where you're trying to go with it.
Yes.
I think it's a privilege to be able to be an artist, from your perspective, I bet it must feel like an absolute privilege to be able to contribute something to the conversation.
Yes.
Like,
yeah. And
it's a privilege and it's an honor to be able to have a voice, to be able to contribute to the betterment of society through your art and through commentary of it. So right?
Yeah, no, that's 100% that. And then just the fact that it's just like, I am grateful and fortunate to have a platform to even say it. And it's not always going to be, I'm not always going to write songs that are preachy. I like writing songs about partying, because that's a part of life. But at the same time, I do want to take those opportunities to say something that really affected me. And it's important to think about. And like you said, like it's I got to add my little part of that, and that means a lot. And too, like I really love that the rest of the dudes are on board with that and even kind of want to do more of it and say something about it. And there's a lot of injustice in the world, and it's a song isn't going to change things, but it does make you think about it. And I think just as long as we're not sweeping things under the rug is like a very good start to change,
And it's, some bands have put out music and it wasn't talking about the things we went through with George Floyd and, our presidency. And it's an interesting conversation listening to different artists talk about, like, no, I didn't go there with this, versus some are talking about how could I not? And I've heard some interviews like going like, how could I not put out music talking about this right now? Like, how could I possibly not? So it's interesting listening to both sides, and just how people process things, for sure.
Right. And it was also because there is on that, it's been a crazy couple of years, and there's we have songs about that too, where it was just like you said, it's how could I not, like, it's all I can think about, and then I'm not going to go write a love song because that's what I do, it's like, no, I have to get this out. And I know not everybody's going to agree, but some people are. They're like, we're all kind of going through this together. So it's nice to be able to add that other little perspective as well.
Yeah. So what does Ignite have coming up the rest of 2022, the rest of 2023? What do you have going on?
So we are heading to Canada on Monday and doing like a 2-week run and playing a couple festivals out there. And then we have another tour. I don't know how much I can say about it, but we have
good for you, by the way. Yay.
Yeah.
That big, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's just there was a bunch more dates in the fall. And so it's that, and for me, I will be putting out Alien Satan stuff as well. Finally, it's been years and years in the making, but there'll be something soon. I just need to figure out how I want to put it out. It's strange in the industry of, well, no, you make CDs and you put them out, and I'm really having the struggle of like, I mean, do I want to press a bunch of CDs or do I want to wait for vinyl to be pressed, or do I just want to put it out? So that's something I need to figure out as well. But there's a lot of that music that I'm excited to finally just get out into the world, and it's strange to, you're like, I'm gonna put this out and it's gonna be the biggest thing. You just wait, and to not. I mean, a lot of that is just with how things have been going with Ignite, to not really be married to that idea. It's 100%. I just want it out, and I don't really have any, like, not that I don't have goals. I just don't have any expectations of what is going to happen. It's just, I'm really excited to share it. And then I will be doing another season of the play Ramona that I'm in. And it's actually going to be the 100th season of this play. It is the longest running outdoor play in America. And it's California's official outdoor play. And that, we didn't really talk about that, but it's based on a true story from the 1800s, about just how Native Americans were treated when the U.S. acquired California. So there was basically, like, the Spanish had to hand over all their land because they lost the war, and Mexico lost California. And in that, the people that were lost in the shuffle were the Native Americans. And so this is all happening at that time. And it's amazing because Helen Hunt Jackson, who wrote the novel, really just wanted to show how, because at the time, Native Americans were viewed as just savages. Like, you had to be like, basically the same way you go where you're afraid of bears, you had to be afraid of Native Americans. And so when she went out to California, she realized what a beautiful culture and people they were, and how terrible they were being treated. So she wrote this book to show to Congress how bad it was, and it got ignored. So she's like, how do I get this out there? Oh, I know what's big is like love stories. So she wrote this beautiful novel, because obviously there's going to be love in the air, even though all this stuff is happening. And so in that, and it was like a bestseller for years, like made Hemet, California a travel destination, just because that's how big this book was back then. And then in 1923, they made a play about it. And it's actually been in the same spot since 1923. And so that's a really cool part to be part of this history. And I get to be one of the many, many Alessandros that, and it's just really cool. I hope people try to go out and see it, especially this year. And because there's like a museum, and I'm in the museum. So that, so I have, that'll be in the fall. So or spring, I should say, of 23. So I'm excited about that. I think that's it. That's going on.
Yeah. So what are your social media handles? And do you have anything else that you want to say to anyone else who's been listening as long as they have? If they've gotten to the end of this interview, they must love you.
Yeah. If you've made it to this point and you run into me and we're eating, you can have some of my fries because you deserve it. My Instagram, and I think it's pretty much my handle across all platforms, is Alien Satan, at Alien Satan, which it's funny that, I think the band came after the Instagram handle. I think I'm one of those. But I'm also trying to get back to, I was doing this YouTube thing for a while at the Cliff Notes of Eli, that I keep procrastinating on getting back at that, where it's kind of just sharing what's going on with me at all times and stuff like that. And I've been encouraged to do TikTok as well, so we'll see how that goes. I go on there, and then
TikTok is a little disheartening. I'll warn you in advance. Like, you think you have a good following, you go on TikTok and like no one cares about you. Like, no one cares. Like,
yeah.
I'm at 400 followers and I'm like, here's my, videos that do so well on my main page. And it's like, I've had some that have done like 7,000 views or something, whatever. But it's like, here's 200 views and you like it. And I'm like, okay. It's very humbling when you first start out, for sure.
It's
that much.
I'm not really entirely sure how it works. Well, you're gonna have 401 now because I'm gonna find you on there.
Yeah.
And then I go on there and then I just watch a bunch of cat videos and kind of forget why I was on there because I've just spent an hour laughing my ass off. But no, and there are like some creators that are so creative where you're just like, how do you think of that? And also, how do you have the time to film these elaborate things on there? And then it's funny, like, because I noticed that with like Instagram, I'll spend time on doing something and I feel like it's really like important to share. And I'm like, this is big. And it'll be like 7 likes. And you're just like, what? And then it'll be like, yo, what's up? Here's my dumb face. And it's just like, everyone likes it. And then you're just like, I don't understand social media.
Yeah, it's really crazy. Like you have to find a song. You have to like find a sound and then say what you're trying to say in that sound. Like I just posted the stupidest thing in the entire world. Like tattoo filter, Love Island. And next week on Love Island, whatever. And I put text about my podcast under that sound. And I think that's how you're supposed to do it. But it's like literally the dumbest thing in the entire world. I don't watch that. It's so stupid. And like, you have to commit. And like, the only way to make it work is to go like, and I showed it and I sent it to friends who are like photographers. And they like, a bunch of people were like, it's too stupid and it doesn't make sense. But I had food poisoning this weekend and I had nothing else to post. And I was like, well, I made that dumb thing like a month ago and I had nothing else to post. So I just did it and just added text. Did fucking fantastic.
Of course. Yeah.
Wonderful. And my friends were like, it's too stupid. And I was like, I know, right? And I had nothing else.
You're not wrong, but.
Yeah, I had nothing else. And I had food poisoning. So I was like, fine. And it killed it.
Yeah,
it's funny. There you go.
Yeah, I know. So, social media, necessary evil.
Yeah,
I get it. And yeah, I find myself like, oh yeah, I should post something. And then I have to like scour my mind of something that would do well. Maybe like make sure you're still in the algorithm. Is that how that works?
It's so good. I love your social media so much. I'm such a big fan. And thank you so much for doing maybe the longest interview I've ever done on here.
I got endurance.
Yeah, we do.
If there's one thing about me, I can talk forever.
As my girlfriends in high school would say, I've got endurance. Yes, I do. I've got endurance. How about you?